Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating, declassified-style national security dossier. It details exactly how Egypt's sovereignty is currently being tested. And I'm not talking about a traditional armed conflict here. We're looking at a highly coordinated threat across three completely different battlegrounds. I mean, we're talking about everything from pixels on digital maps to the massive resource-rich expanses of the Eastern Desert, all the way down to the ancient royal tombs of Luxor. In this explainer, we're going to unpack how the source material views the defense of national heritage and borders as an absolute fortress against modern, multidimensional destabilization.
So let's kick things off with a pretty crucial question, one that actually sets off this entire documentary investigation. How can a physical border just vanish from your screen overnight? Imagine a well-documented international border, mapped out for decades, and then suddenly it's just gone from interactive search engines. Not a trace. Sounds completely crazy, right? But that is exactly the unsettling anomaly regional observers have recently flagged, and it really serves as the spark for this entire security report.
To really wrap our heads around this, we'll be breaking down this multidimensional threat across 6 critical areas. We're looking at the digital cartography threat, border incursions and illegal gold, military and border defense, cultural intrusions and heritage, guardians of historical identity, and finally, disinformation and sovereignty.
All right, let's jump right into area number 1, the digital cartography threat, erasing borders online. Now, regional observers have flagged a highly concerning trend on interactive search engines like Google Maps. Check this out. When you search for the map of Egypt in Arabic, the famous Halaib Triangle is generally shown perfectly intact, right within Egyptian borders. But if you make that exact same search in English or other foreign languages, the triangle is mysteriously amputated. The report notes that even the standard dotted lines, the ones usually used to show disputed territories, they've been completely visually erased. And let me be clear, this isn't just being brushed off as some weird technical glitch. According to the security dossier, these altered digital maps are actually providing a pretext for foreign media and armed groups to justify physical incursions right there on the ground.
Which brings us to our second area, border incursions and illegal gold, the physical threat.
The reports identify the absolute biggest physical threat at the southern border as the Dahaba. Basically, these are clandestine, highly organized gangs of heavily armed gold miners. The dossier details how these groups are literally exploiting the geographic ambiguity created by those falsified digital maps to illegally infiltrate Egypt's resource-rich eastern desert. They are using the digital map confusion as a literal smokescreen to just walk in and steal gold.
And they definitely aren't just wandering around aimlessly out there. These gangs are specifically targeting highly strategic sites, namely Mount Akat and Mount al-Aqidat. The Egyptian security dossier stresses, and I mean heavily stresses, that these mountains are strictly north of the 22nd parallel. That places them squarely inside the Egyptian security buffer zone. So any foreign claim here is considered a direct, absolute violation of sovereignty. But it gets deeper. Security sources allege this illegal mining isn't just about stealing mineral wealth. These Dahaba are running massive smuggling mafias, moving weapons, drugs, and refugees. Most alarmingly, though, the extracted gold is allegedly a primary financial pipeline funding the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, which is fueling the ongoing conflict in Sudan.
Let's move on to Area 3, Military and Border Defense, securing the 22nd parallel.
So how do you respond to that? Well, to secure this mineral wealth and lock down that crucial 22nd parallel, the Army didn't mess around. They deployed a systematic, high-intensity strategy. Step 1 involved highly targeted Apache helicopter strikes on the starting positions of these armed infiltrators. Step 2, a complete high-tech aerial scan of the entire region to track even the tiniest movements on the ground. And Step 3, the crown jewel of the operation, was deploying the Black Cobra Elite Special Forces. Their one and only mission is to secure the gold mines of the Golden Triangle and completely lock down that border against these armed gangs.
The sheer scale of this defense is honestly staggering. Just recently, more than 2,500 infiltrators were rounded up and deported using 26 buses, specifically routed through the Argentine border crossing. And alongside this massive deportation, border guards seized nearly 700 smuggling vehicles used for illicit digging and transport, not to mention metal detectors and heavy machinery. It is a massive, ongoing, highly coordinated physical defense of the border.
Now for Area 4, Cultural Intrusions and Heritage, Rewriting History.
This is where the dossier takes a major shift, moving from the militarized South to what it identifies as a severe cultural intrusion. The report claims that certain movements, specifically citing the Afrocentric movement, are actively attempting to rewrite the ancient history of the region. The dossier doesn't frame this as just some casual academic debate. It frames it as a very real demographic and cultural challenge to national identity. This tension actually boiled over recently into a real physical incident in Luxor. A famous American blogger and his companion were caught acting suspiciously, illegally filming inside forbidden, highly protected zones of the Valley of the Kings. When confronted, he was immediately expelled from the country, slapped with a lifetime ban, and the Antiquities Protection Law came down with full force.
Okay, Area 5, Guardians of Historical Identity, the Civilian Shield.
The dossier specifically highlights the everyday heritage guards as the true first line of defense. According to guard Sheikh Ahmed Abdel Karim, when talking about the Luxor incident, he said, "We try to tell the visitor this is forbidden. We had to physically prevent him from entering by force." Protecting these historical sites isn't just checking tickets. It requires deep intuition to spot suspicious behavior and sometimes a willingness to engage in actual physical confrontation to stop forced entries into these forbidden tombs.
Another antiquities guard, Ahmed Mustafa, recounted how that same blogger attempted to just bribe his way into the restricted areas. Mustafa stated, "I refused because these things are offensive to our country." The security report presents this rejection as way more than just enforcing workplace rules. It's framed as a fierce act of national pride, a literal civilian shield defending Egyptian identity from cultural falsification.
Finally, we arrive at Area 6, Disinformation and Sovereignty, the Media War.
To tie all these seemingly disconnected fronts together, the digital maps, the gold smugglers, the cultural clashes at ancient tombs, we absolutely have to look at how digital disinformation attempts to twist these defensive actions. The sources allege that certain groups, specifically calling out the Muslim Brotherhood, weaponize the media to create completely false narratives. Here's a perfect example. On one hand, you have the reality, a tragic but very standard civilian car crash on the Cairo-Alexandria desert road that unfortunately killed Lieutenant Imad Adel Faiz. On the other hand, the disinformation. Media campaigns literally stole his photo and claimed he was killed in a massive military massacre in El Abed, Sudan, supposedly proving Egypt was secretly sending troops to fight there. The dossier argues this is a highly deliberate tactic to spark unrest, divide the public, and turn the army's legitimate border defense against the Dahaba into a fabricated international scandal.
When you put all these puzzle pieces together, the central thesis of the report becomes crystal clear. It outlines a highly coordinated, multidimensional threat. But ultimately, the core takeaway from this dossier is that against falsified Google Maps, armed militia stealing gold, and targeted media lies, Egypt's 7,000-year uninterrupted historical continuity stands as an unbreakable fortress. That deep-rooted identity is positioned as the absolute ultimate shield against modern destabilization.
So, as we wrap up our look at this fascinating security explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really ponder. We've seen how the very nature of national defense has mutated. How does a nation continue to protect its sovereignty when the front lines become increasingly invisible, when they're hidden in digital pixels, buried in the cultural narratives of ancient tombs, and masked by social media disinformation? It's a completely new era of national security, and understanding it starts right here. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning what you see on your maps.